Hey everyone, I'm Nico from Licks of the Beast, and in this video we're going to talk about Iron Maiden's brand new single, Stratego. This is definitely not a riff-based song where everything rests on the guitars. This one is actually all about the melody and the story they're telling. The lyrics seem to be about a warrior on their way to becoming a warlord in a setting that is very likely feudal Japan during the Sengoku Jidai, or the Warring States period. They could be inspired by an actual historical figure. And I'm thinking it's possibly inspired by Takeda Shingen. The ornament on the front of Eddie's helmet on the cover, what's called a datemono, looks a lot like the one that Takeda Shingen was famous for. So I would be very interested in knowing more about the inspiration for this song. Either way, this song is all about the melody and the story. The guitars are playing more of a supporting role along with the rhythm section. But as we'll see, there is still quite a bit going on here. They're providing a solid canvas upon which the vocals can shine. And man, do they ever shine. Bruce is sounding as powerful as ever. The way he sings "Look in My Eyes, There's No Surprise" makes my hair stand on end. Nico McBrain also gives a phenomenal performance here. If he was playing in a more laid-back fashion on the Writing on the Wall, he's in full force on this one. That bass drum is so badass, and at the first listen, it took me back to Where Eagles There. And that's really awesome. So anyway, I want to get into breaking down the song, but before I do, I've got a quick disclaimer for you. I am not going to do a critique of the song. That's just not my thing in general, and it's even less so when it comes to Iron Maiden. First of all, because I'm a longtime fan, which makes me biased. But more importantly, this is a band that has been consistently active at the highest levels for 4 entire decades. They have a strong sense of integrity and a strong belief in what they need to do and how they need to do it. After they've written, recorded, and released album number 17, for me to sit here comfortably on my little sofa and point out the inevitable imperfections of a finished product just feels ridiculous to me. That's got nothing to do with rock and roll. The band that inspired me to practice guitar over 30 years ago is still actively releasing strong new material today. I'm just not going to look that gift horse in the mouth. So I hope you'll understand why I'm not going to participate in this discussion, but what I am going to do is tell you about all of the cool things going on with this song and try to explain the reasons for some of those things. So with all that being said, let's get right to it. The intro brings back the beloved, the cherished, the awesome, the trademark Iron Maiden gallop rhythm. We are in the key of E minor, and you have one guitar doing this. And the other two guitars are playing this octave melody here. I love the use of the sharp 4 here. It's a nice chromatic movement, and it makes a tritone against the E underneath, which makes it sound so ominous and foreboding. We're almost in Black Sabbath territory here. And I like how Yannick is using a very broad melody, letting the notes breathe instead of making it busy with too much movement. Instead, it's very open and lets the gallop rhythm of the bass and drums come through nice and punchy. The verse has 2 parts going on as well. The first one is made up of moving root third dyads over an E pedal tone. Something like this. The other part outlines the vocal melody. And the melody is based on the minor pentatonic scale. and it uses every note in the scale, so it's very melodic and very articulated. Then we get to the first part of the pre-chorus, which again has two main parts. One is playing these power chords, E, C over E, C, and D, and then back to the gallop. The other part supports the melody with double stop bends like this. And Bruce is sounding great here, by the way, as he's singing a high B and C with relative ease. Those are not easy notes to hit, let alone with that kind of power. The second part of the pre-chorus goes like this. And the way it leads to the chorus reminds me a bit of Stranger in a Strange Land. And here too, Bruce's voice is sounding big, full, and really powerful. The chorus features a 1, 6, 4, 7 chord progression, or E, C, A, and D. So you have one guitar playing those whole note chords, while the other two are outlining the vocal melody once again. First, just one playing the main notes of G, F sharp, D, and A. And then the other one comes in harmonizing a third up with the notes B, A, F sharp, and C. The vocal melody is also harmonized a third higher on the second half, so harmonically the sound is very rich. Now very often this is where you start to run the risk of things getting too busy. You're writing and arranging and you're thinking, oh, harmony here would sound great, and what if we added another harmony there? And it all sounds awesome until you play the full thing back and you realize you went too far. However, in this case, things really do sound big and epic, and it really brings to mind that Maiden sound of the 80s. After the first chorus, they go into a bridge section, which is not something Maiden do very often. I tried thinking of other songs where they do this, and the only ones that came to mind were Mother of Mercy and Passchendaele. I'm sure there's more, but it's not a common thing for them, so it's a cool bit of arranging as it keeps the tension high before winding down back to the verse. That section has the guitars playing octave chords moving in slightly different directions. So you have one part doing something like this. And another one is doing something slightly different, something like this. So the two parts together sound something like this. Did you notice where the two parts clash for just a second? That's because at that spot you have a G over an F sharp, which is a minor second apart, and that's the most dissonant interval you could possibly get, short of going into microtones. So why doesn't it sound bad overall? Well, because the focus is on the overall movement of the section, and you can hear the two parts distinctly along with a very strong vocal melody which actually lands on a G right at that spot. so that one dissonant note in the background is actually sounding pretty cool. This is very likely just an accident where it felt natural to have the guitars move in slightly different directions, and they didn't pay too much attention to that one note. Now let's talk about Yannick's solo real quick. It's a fairly typical solo for Yannick, no surprises here. It brings to mind his solo from Ghost of the Navigator, the way he repeatedly picks certain notes with a hint of pinch harmonics. He's got repeated motifs where most of the notes are picked, and of course a very skewed sense of movement from one lick to the next. My favorite lick is the second one he does that goes something like this. This lick is very reminiscent of Ritchie Blackmore and can be quite challenging to play because it requires a very precise bend and release technique. You're going for this sound here. But with this technique. So you have to bend up from D to E, release to D sharp, back to E, back down to D sharp, up to E again, and release to D before continuing the lick. It's simple, but not at all easy to play correctly, and again, it requires a lot of precision, especially at the speed at which it's played. After the solo, we get this really mean sounding breakdown riff. This riff is based on the Phrygian dominant scale, which is why it has that power slave vibe. You have the other two guitars playing slight variations of this part, something like this. That takes us back to the chorus, and there's a really cool variation in the rhythm guitar at the end of the chorus where he goes from playing whole note chords to a gallop. And that increases that sense of tension and urgency leading to the outro. The outro reprises the intro riff, but with the added synth in the background it becomes more epic sounding and takes on a cinematic vibe. And that leads into a syncopated rhythm for the ending that sounds like war drums. This was probably inspired by the rhythms of taiko drumming, traditional Japanese drums. So instead of ending with a bang, it ends more like the preparation of a battle to come. Again, staying in line with the song's theme rather than just making a cool part for the ending. One last thing I want to mention is I've been seeing a lot of comments online about the production being bad and the song sounding weak or muffled, but I've been listening to it on YouTube Music and it sounds great there. It's definitely a whole lot better than what you hear on YouTube videos or other streaming platforms. It actually sounds like Kevin Shirley did a phenomenal job on capturing a nice full sound from the band. Just keep in mind that when you have this much stuff going on with multiple guitars playing in different registers and with harmonies, bass, drums, and vocals with their harmonies as well, it's not going to sound great with the highly compressed sound of streaming audio. So I'm sure the CD will sound a whole lot better than what you're hearing online now. Alright, well that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it maybe gave a little more insight into the song. Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments section. Don't forget to leave a like and do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching and stay tuned for more licks of the beast.